The first agenda item is a call to order. The time is 10:33 on Wednesday, June 26th. A quorum is present. All right, we are going to do something different, which we've never done before, but I think it is highly appropriate that that we recognize, be grateful for the country that we live in, freedoms that we possess, public safety that we find that we are so passionate about protecting. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next time we'll have the Texas Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, I know, but our council didn't know the words, so I didn't want to embarrass him. But he's real easy to see in that beautiful seersucker shirt. He'll be serving mint juleps after the. Sorry, Clark, your knee's a target. Next agenda item is approval of commission meeting minutes of May 28th. I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. We'll now vote. And the minutes approved. Approved. Thank
You'll
you.
go ahead and check your boxes when they pop up.
Oh, I have to. Ah, there it is. The minutes are approved as written. Our votes have been recorded. Okay, the next agenda item will be an update of the sunset implementation. Director Cardona.
Good morning, Chairman and Commission members. I'm Amy Cardona. I'm here to give an overview of the 3 phases of sunset implementation, including both provisions from House Bill 1545, the sunset bill itself, in addition to what? I'm not yet to the next slide.
No, I was wondering if your mic is on.
Oh. How do I turn it on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, she's on.
I'm on, okay. And in addition to the management actions directed by the Sunset Commission that were not contained in the bill, but are items that they wanted us to implement. So I'm going to talk about our internal planning process, which has already started and is ongoing. And then I'll talk about the 3 phases and some highlights of what you'll see for each phase. And by phase, I'm talking about basically when you're going to see those things happen. Because there are a lot of different effective dates in the bill. So I'm going to give you an overview of that. Okay. So I want to explain what we're doing a little bit as it relates to implementation. In a nutshell, we're focused on phase 1 items because they're effective September 1st of this year. And also we have a few items that are due at the end of the year, but essentially they will require rulemaking. So you're going to see those probably in the September, November timeframe. So what we're doing is we're meeting with staff to discuss and document the specific implementation tasks that we need to accomplish, who's responsible, due dates, sequencing, all of those things. And we're doing that with the other bills that pass the session as well, so we can look at it from a holistic perspective and prioritize effort and figure out where we need to spend our time. And so we're looking at rulemaking timelines because we have to back all of those things up. So when do we need the rule, and then back up the timeline from there. And that's really the foundation for figuring out the implementation steps in terms of what we need to do in terms of internal and external communication, what IT changes we may need, and fully defining what the tasks are and what's needed to complete each item. So I've divided all the sunset items into 3 phases, as I mentioned, because the due dates are staggered. And okay, this is phase 1. So many of these items I mentioned at the last meeting because they're more immediate and will take us a sooner. And these are a sample. This is not an exhaustive list of all the items that go into effect at the beginning of this coming fiscal year. And I also included the outdoor ads item, which is effective at the end of the year, but we have to get started on it now because it requires rulemaking. The phase one items are what we're focused on right now in terms of planning. Our permit and license totals will reduce by 14 on September 1st. And about 30,000 individual permits and licenses will be affected. Primarily those involve the agents permits, so the folks that work for the distributors, the wholesalers, distillers, etc. And we will be sending out a communication for those affected very soon. And in addition, we've got a modernization of the conflict of interest provisions in our code will go into effect on September 1st for both staff and commission members. The beer to go provisions go into effect September 1st to commission members. So I don't know if we need to get a bigger dais or what we need to do there, but
We're just gonna get cozier up here.
I guess so. Yeah. And we also have some package store ownership limitation changes going into effect September 1st. And one of the things we're talking about right now internally, because it does require rulemaking, is changes to outdoor advertising. And essentially what will happen is that all the requirements for advertising will be aligned across all retailers. So right now, retailers that are not mixed beverage have more stringent requirements. And so those will go away September 1st. And we are required to adopt a rule to define what their requirements are going forward. Okay. So phase two items, there are fewer of these, but each one is more complex. And so has a lot of moving parts. So what you'll see at the end of calendar year 2020, so right before the next legislative session, is restructuring of the license and permit application review and protest processes. Basically, what will happen here is, in a nutshell, the changes passed in the bill are meant to standardize the process across all licenses and permits, so everybody's experiencing the same process. For label approval, we'll be moving to using the federal certificate of label approval to approve all malt beverage labels in lieu of the state process that we have now. The bill also eliminates mandatory content testing and allows industry the ability to request a hearing if TABC does not make a label decision within 30 days. And there are other pieces to that as well, but these were just a few highlights that I wanted to draw your attention to. And lastly, we were directed through a management action to update our penalty chart and rule to include all regulatory violations like marketing practices, and they asked us to do that by the end of 2020, calendar year 2020. Okay, so phase three. We've been talking about how we're going to go from 75 licenses and permits down to 36, plus the 2 that the legislature just created. But actually, the vast majority of that change won't occur for another 2 years. So when we talk about combining primary with subordinate permits and that sort of thing, that will mainly occur on September 1st of 2021. And that also includes the beer ale consolidation. So this will mean merging some of our permits and licenses together, but it also has other implications because it will modify the authorizations for a number of our licenses and permits. And it will also involve things like applying a lower tax rate to everybody. And then the third and final piece is the bill removes all of our fees from statute. It takes away the concept of a surcharge and requires that we set all of our fees in rule by 9/1/2021. That's all I have for now. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
I have one question on the distinction between beer and ale. I understand what's happened here, but does that mean that we are going to call everything beer, or that you can call it whatever you like?
Well, I guess in common, conversation, we can call it whatever we want, but in the code, it's moved to malt beverage.
So in the code, it will be referred to as malt
Yes.
beverage. So the term beer and ale will simply be used as a marketing term by the manufacturer. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great.
I think they were looking for a term that wasn't either or, to make it clear that it was inclusive of all of those. Anything else?
No, but I want to also say that, first of all, again, we can't thank the team enough for all the work that's gone into this. And I was talking to the general afterwards, and I said, we put so many hours, and also with the legislative budget that we're about to hear about. But our work has really just begun. We've spent all this time presenting to the legislature, and now we have to fulfill the expectations that they have made upon us, and the great, I think, honor that we have by being so, I believe, rewarded through this legislative session. Now it's the time to say, this is what you've given us, and for the next 2 years, we're going to put together a report card, because I intend to go back in 2 years and say, this is what we've done, this is how successful we've been as an agency, and we want to continue to build upon success. So in many ways, the work that we've done for the last 2 years, certainly the last 12 months, is just beginning. And so, no rest for the weary, folks. You got to keep pedaling hard. So, I know you're happy to hear that, General. Well done. Thanks. Vanessa, welcome. The next agenda item will be the update of the 2021 budget. 86th legislative session. Director Mayo.
Good morning, Chairman Rowley, Commissioners. Welcome back to Austin. For the record, my name is Vanessa Mayo. I'm Chief Financial Officer here at TABC. And today I'll quickly cover our appropriations as received in this legislative session. Quick overview of our exceptional items. This slide shows our biennial requested amounts compared to our biennial received. It was quite a successful one. I will say this was one of the most successful legislative sessions TABC has seen in recent history. Marianne mentioned this in the last commission meeting, but I feel it bears repeating. In the last 5 sessions or 10 years, we've only seen a $9 million increase again in 10 years, and we lost about 61 FTEs. This last session, we have now received almost 16 million and had a gain of 37 FTEs. So that's remarkable that we've gotten this done in one session compared to the last 5. This, again, details our exceptional items and what we received. Please note that the licensing and tax technology item we received fully funded. Again, that's very successful for us. We received all that money that we requested in the 5 FTEs in relation. We received partial technology for public safety, and we received partial of the border security request. But with the border security, public safety, this is our enforcement folks, we received 29 FTEs, and that is for human trafficking efforts. So that is specifically appropriate to us for those efforts. We received some money for employee retention, and we received half of our CAPS support. Here, this slide outlines budget by strategy. Our current biennial budget is roughly $48 million a year. So overall, you'll see our budget increased by about 15%. Interesting to note, though, when you look at this by strategy, again, these are strategies set forth by the LVB in our bill pattern. IT, their budget increased 170%. So that's a huge bump for IT. They will be our superstars here next session or next biennium. This slide outlines our capital budgets. Capital budgets are separate. They do have certain limitations of what we can do with the money, where we can spend it. Those items highlighted in green are increases as a result of our exceptional items that were funded. You'll notice fleet vehicles, there was an increase in the year 2020, and that is to outfit our 29 agents that we received. So it's a one-time expenditure in the first year, as it's a one-time cost. Again, capital items are anything or any project or any item that are $100,000 or more within the biennium, so we have special rules. And these are our capital budget items for this biennium. That concludes my presentation on budget. Are there any questions?
I'll just say congratulations on the job.
Yeah, exactly. All right, another very exciting, innovative program on our enforcement side. The next agenda item will be an update on the TRACE program. Chief?
Good morning, Chairman Lilly, Commissioners. Before I begin, to provide, again, for the record, my name is Victor Kirkendall, Chief of Law Enforcement for the Enforcement Division here at TABC. And before I begin my slide, I just want to help you recall what the TRACE program is. As you recall, TRACE is an acronym that stands for Target Responsibility for Alcohol Connected Emergencies. It's a law enforcement operation that provides the means to initiate an investigation into the source of alcohol immediately following a DWI or other alcohol-related incident which results in serious bodily injury or death suspected to be connected to a TABC license location. So to assist with the immediate notification to our agency, we established a toll-free hotline for first responders. Once notified, our supervisors will determine the appropriate response and resources needed and can dispatch agents anywhere in the state of Texas after being notified about these events. One of the significant challenges we've had since we implemented the program 6 months ago, as you recall, was in December, is that the use of the hotline number has been almost non-existent. While it's not mandated that they use a hotline number, it is the preferred method of communication as far as notification is. So to address that, which is what the update's about primarily, we recently held a meeting with the Texas Department of Transportation and representatives from the Texas Municipal Police Association regarding the inclusion of TRACE information on the Texas Peace Officers Crash Report. That's a document that every police officer in the state of Texas investigated a motor vehicle crash has to complete. And also TMPA's Law Enforcement Advanced DWI reporting system, otherwise known as LEADERS. On the crash report itself, officers investigating DWI fatalities will be required to acknowledge whether or not they contacted TABC of their investigation if the source is believed to be connected to a TABC licensed location. The TRACE hotline number will be listed on the form for reference. The significance of that is every officer, again, that investigates vehicle crashes in Texas will become educated about the need to contact TABC and become familiarized with that hotline number. Here I've showed a display of the first page of the crash report, and at the bottom, that second section there is where the driver's information, occupant's information is captured, and the evidence that's collected in those investigations relating to intoxication is recorded as far as those investigations. It is here, I think, that we'll probably see TxDOT implementing or putting the TRACE information on that form. That's yet to be determined.
So do the officers actually will fill this out on their laptop that's permanently affixed to their patrol car? Is that when they do that, or they do that back when they return to the station?
It depends. Most of them are going to actually do the report when they get back to the station. But because they're going to have to complete these on every accident they work, regardless if it's a fatality or if it's just a regular fender bender, that information is still going to be on the form. So it serves as a visual reminder. Because one of the biggest problems we have is that officers get just so inundated with having to investigate a fatality or a serious incident that they get a little tunnel vision and think about what they have to do to complete their investigation. And they forget about contacting TABC and letting us assist them in those investigations as it relates to TABC license locations. And I can tell you from experience, when you work fatalities or major assaults, homicides, it's overwhelming and you forget about the one-offs.
Sure. Reasonable.
Okay. So, sorry. As it relates to TMPA's LEADERS software, that software is designed to take the place of a traditional narrative style report. What it is all the information the officer enters into the system helps the officer complete their DWI forms, their affidavits, their search warrants, everything related to DWI investigation. So basically, it helps the officer write the reports and investigate the DWIs. Now, LEADERS will create an acknowledgement question in their system to ensure officers are reminded that they needed to contact TABC during the failed DWI investigation connected to a TABC license location. And here again, they're going to display the TABC hotline number as a reference. I did include this little snip from that system, and here's, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but TABC already utilizes the LEADER system, And what we utilize it for is they're recording the information of last drink and all the DWIs related to these arrests are entered in the system. TABC has the ability to go in there and extract reports and identify trends of DWIs coming from licensed locations. If we see a significant number of DWIs related to a specific licensed location, we can open an investigation and start conducting operations to determine whether or not over service is occurring at that licensed location. So we're already in a relationship with leaders to begin with. This is going to be something they're going to help us promote the TRACE program.
So the last drink is the first question. Did the defendant leave a business that serves alcohol?
Right. So did the driver leave?
Did he leave a business that
Serves alcohol, so they
Yes.
get answers yes, and then the next question is what identifies their location. It's kind of blurry there. I know it's hard to read that. So anyways, yes, and of course, that information is what we extract, identifying the trends.
Do they always tell you the truth?
Exactly.
I'm sorry?
Do they always tell you the truth?
Well, you know, they really don't know what the purpose of it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not the truth, they could either say, I'm not answering it, or I was at the house. We get plenty of that as well in the report. But if they tell us the location, we tend to believe it might be that. It doesn't mean that if we open an investigation on a licensed location means that they do anything wrong. It's just identifying a need to look at it, make sure that their operations are being conducted appropriately. It may be something as simple as providing them education and whatever else. Okay. So Leaders is also going to help gather additional information that doesn't necessarily meet the threshold for a trace investigation to be initiated, but through a scoring metric that's going to be part of their system, it'll help identify DWI arrests that may be of concern or interest to TABC that we may require further investigation.
So if there, let's say that it's not vehicular. Let's say that there is a homicide or violent act that is at a licensed location where the perpetrators were clearly intoxicated, may have been overserved, what have you. Does that get back to us?
In the trace program, trace system, it would, but these specific databases, it would not. But through this, we're educating them the need to contact us. So they can contact us not just for DWI fatalities, but also, just as you pointed out, assaults, whether or not they're physical or sexual, and alcohol poisoning. I had a question recently about, did we collect information on major cities involving these scooters and the people that are falling off the scooters because they got overserved? Now, like, we don't have a method of collecting that right now. But one thing we are reaching out to is the State Fire Marshals Association and also the paramedics to see if they can turn around and start helping promote the trace system so they can turn around and contact us as well.
Are those scooters considered moving vehicles?
No, sir, they are not.
So you cannot get a DWI for driving your scooter into the side of a car?
No, sir, you cannot. There has to be a certain amount of horsepower involved in that. You know, I don't think the scooters are going
As
to make that
opposed to
threshold.
just annoyance?
They are that. Right. No, I'm not going to say that. They're everywhere, it seems like nowadays. So anyways. So again, I point out the major significance of this information I presented today is the fact that every officer investigates crashes in the state of Texas is going to see TABC's trace information. They're going to see the hotline. It's going to help educate them. They need to contact us. And so we're thinking that by doing this, it's going to have a huge impact on the success of the program. Some other things not listed in here that may be of interest as well is that we've just finished filming, or we're in the process of finalizing the filming 4 videos, one of which is a law enforcement training video, a community education video, a retailer prevention video, and a short PSA that we can use in like social medias and things of that nature. We're finalizing the training, the trainer stuff. This is the internal training where all of our TABC agents are getting the trace training. We're about 75% completed with it, and we should be completed with internal training by the end of July. And then our external training to other agencies should be finished by September 1. We were waiting on the law enforcement video to be implemented part of that deal. And we're hoping that we can approach TCO, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, to mandate trace as part of the alcohol beverage code training required in the over 100 basic peace officer academies across the state of Texas.
Right. Okay, I hate to beat this to death, but I really wanted another question, and that is Captain and I were talking about this morning. As you have more of these types of non-vehicle vehicles that go at a high rate of speed, people aren't wearing helmets, they're driving, they're on it impaired, they're intoxicated. And if they get into an accident and they are killed, right, run over, what have you. So it's just like a pedestrian, it's treated the same as if somebody walked across the street and was hit by a car.
If it's involving intoxication coming from a licensed location, it doesn't make a difference if it's the driver, the pedestrian, if it has no vehicle involved at all. We want to know about those events involving over service so we can investigate it. Right.
So they would fill out a trace form if something like that happened.
Correct.
If a pedestrian was run over and
We take it, we just really not form. All they got to do is pick up the phone, call the hotline, and we'll just take action from there.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions? Thanks, Chief.
Thank
you, sir. Next agenda item will be an update on industry engagement. Director Staples.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good to see you today. I've got an update for you on TABC's engagement and communication with our industry stakeholders. Overall, we're consistently engaging all of our industry stakeholders across the state using multiple platforms and all in an effort to be, enhance our transparency and connectivity with industry. First up, we have our industry engagement efforts. We've got several industry events that the AAC is attending and participating in over the course of the summer. We're planning to give various updates on the upcoming changes that TABC will be going through and how they impact industry. As we all heard through Director Cardona, quite a bit coming up. But when we see this list, we don't want anybody to feel discouraged if they're left out or if TABC isn't coming to their event. We're glad to participate. So you can see there's an image of a form on the right side of the screen. We have this new form online that anybody can go access, fill it out, and with the click of a button, send a request to TABC to come participate in an event or speak to a particular group, and we're glad to make that happen. Next up, we've got the lines of events that TABC is actually hosting and conducting around the state, executive summits and roundtables. So for the coming fall, we plan on doing one executive summit, and this will be focused on the distributor and wholesale tier. We've already done an executive summit for the other two tiers, and all went really well, and got a lot of good feedback from that. So we're looking to do that in early December in Dallas. A lot of details to hammer out there, but we'll keep you informed as that comes together. As for roundtables, we're planning to do one in each region of the state, more if we can squeeze them in. But both of these lines of effort are, I think, a good way we feel to keep TABC accountable and in touch with its stakeholders all over the state, not just the folks that come see us in Austin. So we're excited to get out there and do that this fall. Lastly, we have our communication efforts. Aside from these face-to-face interactions that we're going to have over the fall, we have several methods of sending out mass communications of coming changes to TABC's tens of thousands of stakeholders all over the state and beyond. We have our industry brief newsletter that goes out every other month with big updates from the agency. Our last publication was early June, and next one will be early August the 6th. Hope to make that deadline, but a lot of information will be on that about some of the new things going into effect September 1, so folks can have an easy way to have that condensed in one spot for them. TABC Talks, another tool we're using to get info out there. It's a monthly online webcast, and in the coming months, we'll be using that to push out a lot of the information and changes about what's happened at the legislature and how that affects industry. And if anybody misses any of these emails or videos and live webcasts, All the information from these are now being archived online, so anyone can access it on time, get it, and use it to comply and know what they need to do for their business. Lastly, we have our industry notifications. Agencies always had some kind of way of getting direct emails out there, but it's been through self-managed lists that not everyone knows how to get on it, and maybe we don't do a good enough work of getting that out there. So we've created we're using this new online email system where you can go on TABC's website, click this red button that you see on your screen, and instantly put yourself on our email list and get notifications about stakeholder meetings, agency advisories, our rulemaking process, and what's taking place. Our commission meetings like today, we send a notice for. So we're looking forward to getting more folks signed up on that and staying in touch with us. Another thing that we're using, it's not mentioned on the screen, is the TABC's new compliance reporting app, which all industry will be required to start using on September 1st. There's a push notification feature where a lot of these notices we send out through these communication methods on your screen will also appear on your phone, so you shouldn't miss a thing, hopefully. So we hope folks will use that, and it's another way to stay in connection. But all of these methods of communication and outreach engagement we feel are critically important, especially over the next couple of years ahead, to get information out to our stakeholders about what's to come. That's all I have for you this morning. If you have any questions, I'd like to answer those.
Commissioners, questions? Also, Commissioner Boatwright, as these roundtables occur, I know that Commissioner Steen and I have both attended. They're really informative. So if there's ever one that's convenient or near where you live,
Even inconvenient.
even inconvenient, right? I didn't want to say that. But it's a great thing, and it's an initiative that General Nettles and Director Staples started about a year and a half ago. It's incredibly well received. And I would guess with all our friends from industry that are here, they probably tend to agree that it's an effective use of time, and it's been very successful. So see you all there. Welcome you out.
Look forward to having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next agenda item will be an update on the agency transformation. Executive Director Nettles.
So that's mine. I'm going to speak from here if that's all right with you. This is probably the second significant reorganization of the agency since I've been here. We began planning part of this during the legislative session, planning for success and realizing that although we had aligned the agency along lines of effort, many of our legacy divisions still had some challenges. So we got with the different divisions, and based upon their recommendations, we've made some changes. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next. So the first we looked at was ITD, obviously with $10 million software coming down the pike. I talked to Director Mosley, and we've realigned this particular division along lines of effort within it. I think it is an opportune time to do so with Director Webster retiring with our agency after 39 years. Some new changes were due. I think this will be more customer service and customer oriented. Next slide. The overall purpose, of course, is to continue to meet the strategic, operational, technological needs of the agency. I think it is moving in the right direction. Everybody seems to well receive it so far. Next slide deals with communications and government relations division. We're still kind of wrestling. As a matter of fact, Matt and I were talking about this morning. I see this as a strategic engagement function. Through that, we've met with the directors. As a matter of fact, Director Cardona came up with this organizational change based upon what a traditional state agency our size looks like. So this will take our education performance, education prevention department, and consolidate a portion of them into communications. They were out there doing Facebook posts and communications. It made sense to me to bring that all in alignment underneath one particular department. We may wrestle with the names that we call this, but in the end, I think it's a move in the right direction as we move toward making all these changes in the code and all these changes in the software. We're going to have to communicate them effectively and efficiently with industry, because in order for them to be successful, we have to get industry utilizing those changes. So Director Morlock will be moving to a new office that we're creating called the Strategic Initiative and Performance Improvement Office with Director Cardona. They're going to be our right-hand people as we move through this transition change management. Next slide. Obviously, our government affairs folks and community education folks did a great job through legislative session, but I think this is an attempt to broaden their aperture so that we address the issues that we have been forced upon us by sunset. Certainly will rise to the occasion. Next slide is the training division. Next. The training division traditionally has done a very good job with our law enforcement training needs, making sure that all our agents are maintaining their certifications. Probably one of the best use of force experts in the state is Director Albert Rodriguez, and we're happy to have him. However, as we make this change, and matter of fact, I was talking with DD, a couple of DDs about this morning. Our licensing personnel world is about to change. Because if you think about it, everything that they know about this agency, their entire work and career has been about these 76 permits. That's going to change, and we're going to put it online. That's a stressful situation. So ideally, in order to try to help them succeed, we need to develop internally training to assist them to understand these new permits, who they apply to, and then training on this software, these 7 different main software programs as we begin to roll them out. We owe that to them, and we owe them also to industry. So training division will take on a component of reaching out to industry and help facilitate their training. And of course, also we have the consumer delivery statute that was adopted and signed by the governor. That has an education and training component. We're going to be responsible for that. So this will give us some additional resources and some additional focus for that particular department. Next slide. Finally, the legal services division. The general counsel and I have discussed this quite a bit. When I first came on, they had a bifurcated legal department, the general counsel office and then the legal division. I'm not sure I ever truly understood why that was necessary. At General Counsel Clark's recommendation, we have made some modification. We're going to collapse them into one, all working for him, because he's the one I constantly hold responsible for all the attorney's actions. Next slide. I think it will eliminate the need for a deputy general counsel for the enforcement position and create teams to support the various customers of the general counsel. Again, it is a move, I think, in the right direction to consolidate and focus resources, and we made it at the request of the general counsel. So, subject to questions, that concludes my presentation.
Sure. Outstanding.
Yep.
Thank you. Well done. All right. The next agenda item is potential action on publication of amendments to Rule 34.2, scheduled sanctions and penalties for health, safety, and welfare violations.
Morning, Commissioners. We have 2 interrelated rule packets this morning. The first is, as you indicated, amendments to Rule 34.2. We have within our rules a schedule of sanctions for health and safety violations. What this would do is it would add human trafficking related violations and prescribe penalties for those violations. As we've discussed before, the legislature in our sunset legislation added section 1.08, which highlighted the need for TABC to focus its resources on combating human trafficking. As part of that, we believe that this rule will be a step in the right direction for my enforcement team to be able to go and prosecute and shut down businesses that engage in human trafficking. This rule, again, adds this to the schedule of penalties, and as I can discuss with the next agenda item, we believe it will help further our mission to combat human trafficking. I recommend publication.
Outstanding. I move to approve publication of proposed amendments to Rule 34.2 as recommended by staff. Is there a second to this motion? Second. All right, we will now vote. Our votes have been recorded. The motion is approved. Mr. Smith?
All right, agenda item number 3.2, consideration of potential action on publication of amendments to Rule 35.31, offenses against the general welfare. Rule 35.31 identifies activity that constitutes threats to the general welfare. The Alcohol and Beverage Code gives us the authority to suspend, cancel, or penalize entities that engage in activities that constitute threats to the general welfare. Rule 35.31 is where we identify what those are. This proposed amendment would add human trafficking conduct to that list and specifically refer to Chapter 20A of the Penal Code, which is the Penal Code's human trafficking chapter. I recommend publication.
I move to approve publication of proposed amendment to Rule 35.31 as recommended by staff. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I have a second. We will now vote. Our votes have been recorded. The motion is approved. And General Counsel Smith, I just want to also applaud our efforts. You know, everything that we have been focusing on, not everything, certainly within enforcement of human trafficking is an area that the legislature has the responsibility that they've placed upon us and given us the resources to attack this disease and this blight on humanity. So consequently, anything as we are affecting these rules to give us the ability to enforce the law, enhance public safety, and to, frankly, shut down these establishments and put these criminals behind bars. It's a slow process, but it is laudable that you champion these rule changes. We're looking forward to big results from enforcement.
Thanks, Chairman. And if I may, I need to give credit to my staff on this. I really didn't take the lead as much as they did. In particular, Senior Attorney Terry Andy, who's based here in Austin. She spent, I would say, dozens of hours during the legislative session drafting language like 1.08, which the legislature passed. And then these rule amendments, Mrs. Handy put together as well. Terry has years and years of experience in criminal law, and I think that really is a great highlight to the skills that my staff has, and is going to be enormously helpful going forward as we work to combat this disease, as you correctly described.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you. All right. Next item is executive session. The commission will now go into executive session under Government Code 551.071 and 551.074. The regular open session of the Texas Alcohol and Beverage Commission will be in recess. The time is now 11:18 a.m. Wednesday, June 26, 2019. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission has concluded its executive sessions, now in regular open session. Date is Wednesday, June 26, 2019. Time is 12:03 p.m. Next is potential action items discussed in executive session. I move to approve legislative appropriation in accordance with section 3.04 or Article 9 of the General Appropriations Act. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. We will now vote. It's not quite the spinning rainbow wheel, but it's.
Guess we'll have to do it.
Can we just do it
We can?
orally?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion has been approved. Next, public comment.
No, sir.
None?
No, sir.
All right. The next meeting date. The next regularly scheduled commission meeting date is planned for Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. Commissioners will that date. Neither do I. Commission is scheduled to meet on Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. Next adjournment time is now 12:04 p.m. and we are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.